Alison Edgar. Alison Edgar. Alison Edgar.
Alison, Mrs. Edgar.
She's spoken to audiences including Porsche, including EasyJet, including Sky. So we are moving into the fast lane.
Alison has shattered expectations at every step of her journey.
So during this process,
Yes.
you have undoubtedly grown. But I still see a lot of self-doubt.
She's advised government at number 10, spoken about equality at the United Nations in Geneva, been honoured by the late Queen for services
To entrepreneurship and business.
and recognised with an honorary doctorate of education.
So I want you to remember how this moment feels in this excitement.
But it wasn't always like that.
Alison grew up in a high-rise council flat in Clydebank.
Just outside Glasgow.
With undiagnosed dyslexia, the odds were stacked against her, yet she went on to become a twice best-selling author, championing that no barrier should hold you back.
So please give a big welcome to stage for Dr. Alison Edgar MBE.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sometimes when I watch that video, I think, is that really me? Because as the intro says, I'm from a place called Clydebank. Anybody know Clydebank? Somebody, a couple of people. It's famous for sort of three things: the shipbuilding industry, the sewing machine industry, and my own personal favourite, Marty Pello from Wet, Wet, Wet. So the struggle with dyslexia was something I think, if we're honest, everybody's got things that they use to hold them back. For me, in the 70s and 80s, when I was educated, it wasn't a word. It wasn't a thing. I just thought I was stupid. I thought I was thick, really struggled to read, really struggled to write. So when I actually worked out what it was that was holding me back, I worked out, actually, I'm quite smart. Actually, I'm quite good at things. And the first book that I wrote went on to be an Amazon #1 around the world, a W.H. Smith top 10 business book, and The Independent voted it one of the top business books written by a woman. Now, why written by a woman makes any difference, I have no idea. But I think, again, when we look at what you do in your roles and you're working in organisations, sometimes we hold ourselves back. We're trying to communicate with others to get what we want from the IT perspective, and it's not always that easy. So what we're going to look at today is around a thing called intrapreneurship. So before I put it on stage, and before Hannah introduced me or you looked at the programme, who had heard of intrapreneurship? 2 hands, 3 hands. So do you know, it's really interesting because what I did, again, during my career, and I'll explain a little bit about that shortly, I did a lot of research. When I set up my own business, I think, research is key. Research is one of those things that if you get the data, then you've got something to build on. So when I was looking to work with organizations, I had to look at what do top performers do? So what do top performing individuals do? What do top performing organizations do? And the red thread that ran through top performing individuals, they always felt like they were running their own business inside the organization. So that came to when they made decisions, it came to how they communicated, it came up with when they were looking at new systems and new processes. They could always take that step back. So I thought, right, okay, this red thread is really important. Has anyone done any research on this before? Because to me, this was groundbreaking. This was something that changed performance within organizations and the results in the bottom line. So I did some research and I found that the original white paper was written by Gifford Pinchot III and his wife, Elizabeth. So they did this initial research and wrote the white paper. Who can tell me what year that was? I've got prizes. Who can tell me what year Gifford and Elizabeth wrote the white paper? Higher. Oh, much higher. Slightly higher. I'll give you a look at them. That might help you. That's not too recent, is it? Higher than 65. Slightly lower. No, I've still not heard it yet. Oh, who said 79? Did you say 78? Yes, big round of applause. 1978. Could somebody? There we go. Oh, we have a runner. Here we are. Perfect. What's your name? Big round of applause for Andy. Woohoo! So this is really fascinating now, isn't it? Because the white paper by Gifford and Elizabeth was written in 1978. And yet 3 people in the room had heard of it. So it's such a key component because, again, if you're making those decisions and thinking like it's your own business, it helps you to achieve those results. So then I had to think, right, love this. I'm loving this concept. This is definitely, I'm on to something here. But then I had to think, well, who is the poster person for intrapreneurship? So when we think about organizations, who comes to mind of the person who is an intrapreneur? And it comes to this man here. Who can tell me who this is? Anyone know? Not quite. Not quite. Well, it does look a bit like Michael Bolton. Anybody know? Would you like a clue? Okay. So I think some people, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this? Anybody see this? I don't know. Apple. And what is it? iPod, right? And just in case you can't see it at the back, there we go. It's not Johnny Ives. He was big at Apple. That is Tony Fadell. So obviously when we think about iPod and we think about iPhone, because believe it or not, it changed our life. So the iPod became the iPhone. But we think that was Steve Jobs. But he's the entrepreneur. He was the founder. Tony Fadell was an employee of Apple. So Tony Fadell and his team of employees changed our lives. Because now we don't just have an iPod. I mean, what did we have before the iPod? The Walkman. The Walkman. And what was the problem with the Walkman? It jumped, didn't it? How many CDs could you have? 1. Now 26. You know, I can imagine people running down Embankment. Every world run. Oh. Tony Fadell, the intrapreneur, and his team of intrapreneurs put 1,000 songs in our pockets. And as IT leaders, you're the change makers in your organizations. You're doing the equivalent. So if we look, when people say to me, so how do we create this entrepreneurial culture within our organizations? It's about creating an environment that allows you to fail. Because I can't imagine that they just went in a room at Apple and came out with the iPod. There was discussions. Do you think we should have a wee screen that goes round? Do you think we should make it silver? What do you think it should look like? Again, those debates to make things right. But what's the difference? Because I think this is where, you know, I'm sure everybody in the room has heard of an entrepreneur. Dragon's Den, The Apprentice. We've glorified that word now, haven't we? Everybody knows it. But not everybody starts a business. And if you look, despite what you see on TikTok or Instagram, not all startups are living in Dubai and driving Maseratis. According to Forbes magazine, 90% of startups actually fail. The brilliant thing about being an entrepreneur, your skill set's the same. Resilience, adaptability, leadership, innovation, persistence. But the great thing about entrepreneurship, you always get paid. But it's trying to create that culture to allow people to come up with new ideas to take that forward. And I think a lot of these things, we sometimes think it has to be the IT leaders or the leaders that come up with the ideas. I wrote my second book I don't know if you remember this, but there was a time that we weren't allowed to leave our houses, but you were allowed to have 6 people in your garden, but you didn't know where they were allowed to go for a wee. So during that period of time, an email came into my inbox from the Cabinet Office. Now, that's not unusual because I do work with government and Cabinet Office. And I'm sitting in the garden, and I said to Kaya from my team, I think I've just been given an MBE from the late Queen for the work that I do in entrepreneurship and business. And she said, Alison, I know. What? You've been hacking into my emails. She said, I nominated you 3 years ago. I genuinely can't believe that. But when she wrote that application, she was 21 years old. So again, I think as leaders, sometimes we feel it has to be all our ideas and we have to do all the things. But actually, intrapreneurship in organizations can start at any age. So we've got the concept of it, but why in organizations is intrapreneurship so important? So from starting the business with no clients, I now work with a lot of the Fortune 500, a lot of the FTSE 100. And can you keep a secret? When I have meetings with all these organizations, they say, Alison, what you have to understand, our challenges are really unique to us. No one else has these challenges, only us. And I'm like, okay, fire away. What's your challenges? Our department silo. Our colleagues don't get on particularly well. They're working in overwhelm. They're really struggling to communicate. It's affecting our employee Glassdoor results. It's affecting everything. But you don't, it's only happening to us. But it's not. It's happening to every organization, or I wouldn't have a job. Intrapreneurship starts to increase communication, prioritization, and understanding. And when you've got organizations that think in an entrepreneurial way, it affects the share price, it affects the results. But it also affects employee engagement and happiness, because it helps people to feel more fulfilled as an entrepreneur. So that's why it's so important. But then I thought, right, okay, I've got a concept. I've met Gifford and Elizabeth. I found Tony Fidel. But how do I teach that to organizations? How can you teach someone to be entrepreneurial? So I had to then come up with methodologies. So it comes around, what would you do if it was your first day? That's what we're going to look at in this session. What would I do if it was my first day? What would I do if it was my best friend? And what would you do if it was your business? So this is teachable. And again, I'm talking to you in the room, but as leaders, I'm also talking to your Kevin McAllisters. Who can tell me who Kevin McAllister is? Anybody know? Home Alone. So if you're the leader of the team and you're here, your employees are home alone. It's your role to take this back to them, to talk about entrepreneurship. So what would you do if it was your first day? And is it anybody's first day today? Must be great if it's your first day. Oh, it's my first day. I'm going out on a little jolly with Cocho. Here I come. But great things happen on your first day. Sometimes people buy new clothes. They might polish their shoes. They might have a shower and wash their hair. Great things happen on the first day. But sometimes that momentum wears off. Day 101, day 1001, 2001. I've been in organizations and on the wall it says, another itty day in paradise. And the hardest thing I see is sometimes that comes from the leaders. The leaders have lost that momentum. You think you've got a new starter coming in. Oh, I don't have your logins yet. IT, you've not got that done. Oh, I don't have anywhere for you to sit. Oh, I don't have a pass for you. Sometimes departments don't make first-day employees feel special because they've lost that momentum themselves. So the main thing with intrapreneurship is really invigorating that mindset. So I had to then look at, well, what's the main reasons that stop intrapreneurship? Because it's okay for me to say, oh, you go back to your offices, you be more intrapreneurial. But there's things that block it. And the first one is metathesiophobia. Who can tell me what that is? I have prizes. Yes. Yes, we have a winner. That's brilliant. What is your name? John. Can we have a big round of applause for John, please? Honestly, I think that's the fastest anybody's ever got that right. Fear of change. Now, I think that's a really interesting one, considering you are the bringers of change, aren't you? You're bringing in new systems, new processes, new security levels, and yet people are scared of change. And it comes back to our brain. Our brain's trying to protect us. It's the fight, flight. Oh, if I change that. Oh, a new system. Oh. I'm going to explain a bit who I worked with before, but I can remember working with a lady called Christine. And we get a new system in place for paperwork, a new paperwork system. It was all electronic, it was great. And Christine was like, I'm a technophobe, I can't do this. I want to use a pencil and a piece of paper. And I could see the worry on her head. Again, your brain is there to try and protect us. The other thing is fear of failure. People don't want to get it wrong at work, so what they do is they create environments that stop failure. But entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship is about encouraging that. Coming back to the iPod, how many times do you think that failed? I must get to know Tony Fidel. I really want to know the answer to these questions. And then the third thing is fear of rejection. Who in this room likes to be rejected? Funnily enough, there's no hands went up there. But this is what happens in workplaces. Because we don't like to be rejected, we really struggle to reject other people. So what happens is organizations and employees say yes to everything. And then they get nothing done. And it's because they don't like to say no to people. So I did mention, before I set up my company, I worked for a brand leader. You may remember them. Robbie Williams his resurgence has really brought it to the forefront. Look me up in the yellow pages, I will be your rock of ages. Imagine working for a brand that Robbie Williams mentions in a song. I was with them for 15 years. 15 years, that's a long time. When I started with them, I felt like I'd won the lottery. For every job, 100 people had applied. We were a monopoly. We couldn't put our prices up. We weren't allowed to because we had the market. We won the European Quality Award 3 times. The share price was high. But something happened that is really important. We were in a room in Bristol and the CEO's roadshow was coming to town. We were really excited, we couldn't wait. And he said, right, I'm going to announce the direction moving forward. We've just invested lots more money in more paper directories in North America and Europe. Because that Google thing will never catch on. Now, we laugh about that now. But there's rooms around the world that people will still be saying, that AI thing, that's never going to catch on. But it's caught on. And again, in your situation, it's in your domain. It's your job to make sure what happened at Yale never happens in your organization. You're the leaders that are bringing technology forward. And obviously, in conjunction with the work that you do with Coach-O, really forming that strong bond to stop the Yellow Pages effect. But I'm a big believer in changing on the way up. So I mentioned I'm from Clydebank. I was brought up in a high-rise council flat. My mum and dad never ever owned a house. My dad worked on the shipyards as a draftsman, and my mum was a cleaner. And for what we were short of in money, we were blessed because we made up for it in love. But at the same time as the revolution in the directory advertising industry, the same thing was going on in the shipbuilding industry. When my dad started his apprenticeship, he used a rubber, a pencil, set square, and a big bit of paper. But all of a sudden, AutoCAD came on the scene. And all the young guys could only do AutoCAD. And the people that it affected most, middle-aged men in their 50s and their 40s, who'd, were in the job for life, the boy-to-man jobs. So when my dad was in his 50s, he made a choice, because this is important. With change comes choice. You are the bringers of change. And within your organizations, with change comes choice. So my dad went back to college in his 50s after work for 2 years to learn AutoCAD. And he became one of the most sought-after draftsmen in Scotland and the north of England because he had the skill sets. So to me, again, it's your job as the change makers to bring your organizations along with you. So we mentioned earlier about that first day mindset, didn't we? That excitement, you're coming to work, you can't wait. Remember, I'm sure that you all do that every day. Bounce out of bed, ready to go to work. But it's the way our brain thinks that really is the control center in all of our decisions. And has anybody heard of Carol Dweck? She does the studies on mindset, fixed and growth mindset. And she works with early years children. She's a professor at Stanford, so she does all the research on early years to teach children to fail, to become more resilient. And as we wrote the second book, every chapter I went through, I had to work out what I had learned. Pretty much most things in life come back to your mindset. So we look at the entrepreneur mindset. Now, I travel a lot. Touch wood, I am honestly blessed to do a job that I didn't even know was a job and something that I love, but I have to travel around the country and around the world to do this. And I was in Sheffield. Is anybody here from Sheffield? Oh, good. I won't mention the hotel, but it wasn't the most salubrious of hotels, right? And it had a courtyard. So again, it was quite a strange setup. I think it'd been an old garrison or an old castle. And you go in and the rooms were in a courtyard. And as I went to my room, I saw something really bizarre. I saw an office chair. Now, obviously, that's not it. That's just an AI-generated capsule there. But it was really weird. Like, why would you have an office chair sitting in the middle of your courtyard? And it wasn't new, because it'd been sitting there for ages. It was dusty. It was ugly. It was a health and safety hazard. It was not aesthetically pleasing. It was awful. But this also comes back to mindset. Because that chair, taking it away, was somebody's responsibility. I'm sure no one in this room has ever said, oh yeah, that's not my responsibility. It was somebody's responsibility to move the chair. Housekeeper, general manager, maintenance man. But everybody walked past it. So it might not have been somebody's responsibility, but every single person in that hotel was accountable for that chair being there. Sometimes, again, coming back to mindset, when my dad went back to college, a lot of people didn't. They moved and change drove them to blame. Oh, I blame the government. Oh, I blame the management. Oh, I blame. And that's what happens. Again, if we look at your roles within organizations, you might put new systems in place and think, this is it. This is brilliant. I can't work out why the marketing department, the finance department, the sales department aren't using all these things that I've just put in. It is your accountability, not just to purchase and to implement, but to make sure that everybody uses it. So a lot of that comes back to the mindset of implementation. But how do you change the mindset? So I think that's interesting, isn't it? Because people go, right, okay, Alison, I want this. I really would love this first day mindset. Love it. I want this. But you're fighting against your brain. And it's not just you, it's all the other departments in your organizations. So again, if you think, again, I'm not saying this is your department, but I'm sure you've come across this with other departments that you're interacting with. We've always done it that way. This is just going to create more work. Or what, you want an extra step on our logins? Or you want extra things? Oh, that's just more work. So when people think like that, when it comes to change and the implementation that you're trying to do within your organizations, people feel quite defensive, anxious, disengaged. But people are icebergs. Again, remember this when you're taking it back to your roles. I don't know what one person in this room thinks, and I don't know what one person feels. But what you see in organizations, especially through change and implementation and different things, behaviors, delays. Oh yeah, I'll get round to doing that. Oh yeah, I know that you wanted us to do that right away, but I've been busy. I've got a lot going on. Oh yeah, I gave that to John. John was meant to do that, didn't do that. And passive resistance. I still don't see why we're doing that anyway. What was wrong with the way we always did it? But we see those, but it doesn't start in the behaviours. It starts on the way we think. So the main thing, again, when I'm working with organisations, again, can you keep another secret? I wish that I could do a survey of how much money is spent on consultancy fees to create the mission, the vision, and the values. And people go, we've just spent a fortune on that, and they're not following that mission or that vision, and they're not displaying those values. Because it's about changing the way people think. The reason that they don't follow the values or the mission or the vision is they're fighting against it. That's rubbish. Intrapreneurship means that you believe in those things. You genuinely not just believe in them, you display them every day. So again, coming back to that mindset, if we do it this way, we'll benefit. And I know the things we're talking about today with Coach, you believe, because you're their clients or potential clients, or you wouldn't be here. But you've got to bring the board with you. You've got to bring the purses and the decision makers. Because if they believe that it is a benefit, then what happens is people are curious. They start to work together, energize, open-minded. That sounds like a great idea. And then what you see, people taking ownership, working together, accountability to be able to implement those changes. I'm not asking for a show of hands. I can see by your faces, but I'm sure the implementation with other departments would be a challenge for some of you. But it's okay for me to talk about mindset, isn't it? Oh, you should be more entrepreneurial. Think about your mindset. I have to practice it every day. It doesn't come natural. It's like sport. Does anybody follow ice hockey? Anybody know much about ice hockey? Ali Pally, that's the London one. So this is my son, Kieran. I've got two sons. Kieran is 24, Connor's 23. And Kieran decided he wanted to take up ice hockey. And like any good mum, you throw yourself in. I became the announcer. I was the bag carrier. I was the stick carrier. I was the kit cleaner. But actually, ice hockey and ice skating teaches you a lot about life, a lot about business, and a lot about change. So when you watch people learning to skate, you see some of them, they just go right in the middle of the rink, right? Literally, they're on there like Bambi on ice, right in the middle. Oh, and then they fall down. But they get back up, and they fall down, and they get back up, and they fall down, and they get back up. And again, that's like adapting to change and entrepreneurship. Then you have the other people at the rink. Now, I don't know what those people think. I've just mentioned that, but I can see them hanging on to the edge of the rink with white knuckles. And I'm sure they're thinking, oh, what happens if I fall? What happens if I cut myself? What happens if I break my leg? I blame John. I didn't even want to come skating. Can't believe I'm here at the rink. But if you never let go of the side, you never experience the glide. Life is like Chumbawamba tub thumping. I get knocked down, but I get up again. Nothing's ever going to get me down. And as you work with Coacho on the implementation of the systems and of the identity and of the security, it's your job to continue to bring everybody along with you, even on the days when you just don't think it's possible. It's about getting back up and going again. So the second part is, what would you do if it was your best friend? Now, has anybody in this room done DISC, Myers-Briggs, Belbin? Can I have a show of hands? How many people have done that? A few of you. I'm going to give you a wee bit of an overview, but what I usually do is, right, and who lives and breathes it every day? Or who has it in a drawer because HR just told them that they had to do it? So just to give you a bit of an overview, because again, sometimes when we look at what you're trying to implement with other departments, they might not just be as on board as you would like them to be. And a lot comes back to these behaviours. So sort of to give you an overview, we're a blend of all different behaviour types, but some people are task-focused, others are relationship-focused, some are introvert, and others are extrovert. So the reason that this is so important, anybody that's done DISC, Myers-Briggs, Belbin, any of them, please dig them out. And then think about this. Because if you look at change or you look at new systems or processes, the red behaviour type, the task-focused extrovert, will just be like, yeah, that's fine. When are we going to do that? And then they go, well, I don't really understand because we've done that, but it's not made any difference. We've not found a difference. When's that going to happen? Or they don't read the instructions and they still can't get it to work. You look at the yellow behaviour types, they're like, yeah, we'll definitely do that. Oh, yeah. Oh, I was too busy. I was doing this. I was phoning customers. I was having a chat with customer service. Oh, yeah, we've not had a chance to do that because they're relationship focused. They're not focusing on the task. It's all about the people. Then we've got our relationship-focused introverts. What happens is they don't like change. In fact, it panics them. But they also are really worried about other people. So they might embrace change, but it would be about, oh, what happens about Jane? She's been using that pen and paper for 25 years. How's she going to cope with that? So it's all about fighting against change because they're worried that it will affect other people. They also struggle to make decisions because they're wondering how that's going to affect. So again, the importance of this is it's just realizing that not everybody is thinking the way you think. So when you're trying to get them on board, they're not on the same page. Then we come to our blues, our task-focused introverts. These are the ones that are right up to the last second of everything. They're double-checking. They'll send you like lots and lots of detail, lots and lots of things that need to be done. But the problem you have is the diagonal opposites. Who's ever met someone they don't get on with particularly well? I'm getting a lot of hands there. Usually, so if you're red behaviour, you want everything done now. Oh, It's those green behaviour types. They need to check with their dog and their granny and their hamster before they can make a decision. They don't come back to you. They sometimes ghost you because they don't want to tell you bad news. If you're here in yellow and you just want it to be upbeat and fun, oh, it's those blue behaviours. They send you all the attachments. They've got all these details. They even read the terms and conditions. If you're here in green, you just want everything to be just the way it always has been and just want everybody to get on. Oh, it's those pushy reds. They send you emails. They don't even say please or thank you. They don't ask you how your weekend was. And if you're here in blue and you just want the task to be implemented, you've already trained people. You've already told them what to do. It's those annoying yellows that just keep talking and they don't listen. So can you see from this, the reason that what would you do if it was your best friends? You don't have to be best friends with the people you work with, but you do have to get on to build that intrapreneurial team. So who was brought up to treat other people how you want to be treated? Whose parent or guardian said, treat other people how you want to be treated? So you always, non-negotiable, treat people with value and respect. But when it comes to the behaviours, if you want to be able to get your things implemented, it's about adaptation. And that's why it really, again, a lot of companies don't just spend money on consultancy for the mission, the vision, and the values. They spend a fortune on behaviour profiling, and people go, oh yeah, I've done that. Put it in my drawer. It's so important to an intrapreneurial culture. So the third thing, what would you do if it was your business? So yes, it's about creating new systems, new processes, working with companies like Coacho to work together to make it safer, make it slicker, and make the organisations you work for stronger. But it's also in situations taking that step back to avoid conflict, to drive things forward and to allow failure. So we covered, where did the idea come from? Who's the poster person? But what do you think the biggest excuse that people use for not being intrapreneurial? What's the biggest excuse? It's not their business, but there's something they blame. Time, did you just say time? What's your name? Ian, big round of applause for Ian. Woo-hoo! Pass that back, thank you. Oh, so overwhelmed, I just don't have time. So much going on. Sure, nobody's ever said that, and it's never been said in your organisations. Honestly, I'm watching the room. Like, I know that you can only see me, not everybody else, but there's so many faces are getting pulled as I'm talking. It's hilarious. But this is where it's really important. What percentage of people do not have a personal time management system in place? Oh, slightly lower. Did you say what? 82, did you say 82? Oh, we have another winner. 82%, big round of applause. What's your name? Moira. And again, it's interesting because when I speak to organisations, they usually all sort of know each other. I forget that you guys don't. So, coming back to your breaks, make sure you're creating a great peer networking during all those breaks. 82% of people. It's shocking, isn't it? Shocking. Who in this room has got a linear to-do list? Some people go, oh, that's me. He's talking about me. So the reason that linear to-do lists don't work comes back to the cross. Because if you're task-focused, you'll be like, oh, I love a little spreadsheet. Oh, I love a little gander at the P&L. I love all that. Oh, a report. Oh, bring it on. Oh, you want me to do the PDPs? Ugh. Oh, you want me to do coaching with my team? Ugh. So what happens is we gravitate to the things we like first, and then we leave all the other bits. And that's why people start chasing you. Haven't you ever been ghosted by one of your colleagues? Sent an email and they've never responded? I don't know when that ever became acceptable. Anyway, could talk about that all day. But also then think about the other departments that you're working with. Thinking about the other departments that you're trying to get on board with the things that you're implementing. If they're relationship focused, oh, I love phoning the customers. Oh, the PDPs love that. Oh, customer service love that. You want me to do reporting? You want me to do spreadsheets? You want me to write manuals for implementation? So again, that's the reason that cross is so important, and really understanding your colleagues. So has anybody heard of the Eisenhower quadrant? Some people. So it was created by President Eisenhower during the Second World War to deploy the troops. So it's like urgent, important, oh, this is crisis, pressing problems, deadlines, and then not urgent. And I don't honestly understand it. But what I did was I translated it and trademarked it to Alison Edgar's Big Balls. So it did set off a few red flags at the trademark office. So I'm looking for, Lewis is going to bring something out, and I'm going to give you an example. But if we look, I translated it into basketballs, tennis balls, and ping pong balls. So does anybody in this room drive? Yeah, some people. Ian, was it Ian? No, it wasn't. John, John, you've had so many mentions today. So think about your car. If you've got half a tank of diesel, petrol, electric, you're not under any pressure. Yeah, I'll get that done. Then the red light comes on. Oh, it's getting a wee bit dodgy now, isn't it? You get to the petrol station. But so many people play chicken with the fuel tank, and that's when the pressure comes in. Lewis is coming on stage. I've got a big volunteer. Give me a big round of applause for Lewis from Coaching. Because coming back to, thank you so much. Coming back to your colleagues and maybe yourself, if we think about doing things in the wrong order. So if we look, organising this event, actually can we have a big round of applause for Lewis, because he's been a big component of making today's event possible. Big round of applause. But that's been your basketball, hasn't it? There's been a lot going on with this. Yeah, but you've also got your day job to do. So, you've got some campaigns to run off the back of that. There'll be some mail shots to supervising your team. Oh, and the cat is also, oh, wait a minute, the cat's in the vet today. So that's a basketball. You make sure you phone the vet, make sure you're doing that. And then, oh, hang on a minute, you've got your team. So you've got your PDPs to do. And then you've got the follow-ups for this. And I think they're coming to pick up the IT. So not the IT, all the kit for tomorrow. So at the moment, that is a definite tennis ball. But by tonight, that is going to be a basketball. So you better not have too much wines. But again, oh, wait a minute, you also forgot to empty your washing machine, and there's no milk left. And I have no jobs in there. And literally, this is life, isn't it? Can I have a big round of applause? So the reason I talk about this, that's life, isn't it? There's always something going on. And this is why people say, I'm so overwhelmed. It's because they don't do things in the right order, and they don't compartmentalise the tasks. So you may have seen Stephen Covey took the Eisenhower quadrant and turned it into the rocks in the jar. So that's not dissimilar. But where he left the money on the table, every one of you could be in the 18%. You could be the most organised person in the world, in the organisation. But unfortunately, you have to deal with the 82. Remember I mentioned why organisations bring me in? Department silo, colleagues fall out, productivity, communication. So where this works is when you're trying to implement something, you're trying to get money from the board, you're trying to get your sales team onboarded with what you want, the customer service team, everybody else. That's your basketball, isn't it? That's your job. Really taking cyber really seriously. But why people fall out is the disparity of the balls. I drive a Jaguar. And you may or may not know, but there's been some things going on within the industry. And a lot of this, again, we don't know. I wasn't in the room. But you've been in rooms in your organisations, and that's your basketball. But other people, a bit like Hannah was saying, well, you want me to spend a load of money for something that might never happen and I don't see a return on it? That's the ping pong ball. There was a survey done recently which shows that 70% of SMEs have had some cybersecurity situations over the last 12 months. And a lot of that is because they're treating those things as a ping pong ball, or it might never happen. So when you're trying to implement the things that you are doing, the things you're working with Coach on, it's your job to redress the balance and make your team see it as a basketball rather than a ping pong ball. And when it comes to implementation, it's also your job to make sure that they see that as a basketball, not as an incumbent as a ping pong ball. So when it comes back to intrapreneurship, we've looked at a lot of things, haven't we? We've looked at the whole journey. But we also look at high-performing organisations. It's really important, isn't it? Because it's about everybody working together to achieve the mission, the vision, the values. Everybody has to believe it and everybody has to work together. So when we think about high performance, we think about sport, don't we? Some people are like, no, never really thought about that. But for the purpose of this exercise, we think about Formula One. How long do you think it takes for them to change the tyres? Actually, I think I've clicked. Lower. Lower. Who said 1.8? Somebody said 1.8. Hopefully that was before 1.8 came up on the screen. Right. So what was your name? Tim. Can we pass that back to Tim? There we go. Big round of applause for Tim. So I think the thing that is super important, after we've now proved that, is without the IT team, the car wouldn't run. Never underestimate the role that you play in the organisations to get the results. But the thing about Formula One, we think about Lando Norris, he's the driver, wasn't it? He was the fastest pit change. We think about the people who were changing the tyres. But it's not. It's every single person in the McLaren team, whether they're the accounts department, the marketing department, the procurement department, the IT department, customer service department, the logo department, the people that clean the toilets, the people that put the food. Every single person in McLaren believes they can win that race. And that is a true intrapreneurial culture. So to recap on what you're taking back, A, yourself, but B, to your Kevin McAllisters and the people in your team. What would you do if it was your first day? Would you think the way you think now? Would you do what you do now? Or would you do something different? What would you do if it was your best friend? You don't have to be best friends with the people you work with, but you can't be blaming about them. You can't be bitching behind their backs. You can't be doing any of that. You've got to get on to achieve those results. And what would you do if it was your business? It's your role to take the messages forward and influence the people who make the decisions on your budget, on what you spend your budget on, to be able to keep your companies identifiable and safe and drive and change from within. So I have been Dr. Alison Edgar MBE. I want to thank you so much for your time.